Hi everyone, we hope you're enjoying the Customer Marketing Summit so far. Just before we jump into the next session, we're so excited to announce the launch of Customer Marketing Core Certified. With 55 chapters and 13 modules alongside fireside chats with contributors from Lessonly, Qualtrics, Hotjar, PitchBook and more, we guarantee you'll receive all the actionable learnings you need to embody your customers and elevate your role. This certification will equip you with knowledge of the most up-to-date customer marketing trends and includes modules on personas, cross-selling and upselling, advocacy and community, storytelling, engagement and retention, just to name a few. Our brand new course will be launching on April 27th, so be sure to pre-register now to save $100. I'll be posting the link in the comments, so keep your eyes peeled. But for now, back to the Customer Marketing Summit.
Cisco is a two-time Program of the Year in Fluitive Customer. They know how to capture and share the authentic voice of customers better than anyone. Let's hear from Kate on how Cisco Meraki does it.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Customer Marketing Summit. Up next, we have an incredible live session, so don't forget to ask your questions in the chat as we'll be hosting a Q&A at the end. With that said, please welcome Kate Vanas, Head of Customer Marketing at Cisco.
Thank you so much, Beth. Hello, fellow customer marketers and fans of customer insight. I am excited to share with you today 4 steps to improve your customer listening strategy. Your company is probably already listening to the voice of the customer, but perhaps the feedback is staying in silos. There might be limited awareness about all the treasure troves of insights that's stashed about your business. This makes it really challenging to empower employees to ground their decision-making in customer voice. It can also erode your customer's experience, as it's likely they're being asked the same question from multiple teams. From the customer perspective, that can feel a little bit tone deaf. Another challenge of having a decentralized approach to voice of customer is that you're really only seeing slices of customer feedback. So you can't really see the forest from the trees in what your customers are telling you. It's like, slide change, inspecting an elephant blindfolded. So you might detect a wall, a tree, a snake, a rope, a spear, or a fan, but you sure won't detect the elephant. Feedback in silos really makes you susceptible to proximity blindness. Transforming your business to listen to customer voice in a holistic way allows you to see the trends, the big ideas, the pain points across all of your customer base, as well as the nuances with specific audiences. So not only will you hear what your customers are telling you better, you'll be better equipped to respond to what they're telling you. So you are likely already keen on making this transformation, or you wouldn't be with us. So let's go ahead and get started. The first step is to identify your key stakeholders to go on this journey with you. At Cisco Meraki, we had a customer experience squad in place championed by our VP of product, support, customer success, and marketing. So our voice of the customer initiative already had built-in executive support from these leaders. But fear not, if you don't have that, you can build your own CX squad. Arguably, the most important member of this squad is a very strong executive champion. The role of this leader is to build excitement for the cause and to help set the expectation that this is a priority. It's pretty rare to find someone across your business that would tell you they don't care about customer insight. It's more a matter of convincing stakeholders why now and why they should prioritize this project over something else. Your executive champion might be your president or CMO. It could be the leader of technology, product, marketing, or customer success. You'll want to work with this executive sponsor to introduce the program to the teams that will be allocating a representative to your working group. So this will pave the way, because then when you appear to make this request to join the journey, you'll have a warm welcome. Beyond your executive champion, let's talk about your other stakeholders. So you'll want to identify the teams across your business that own a customer feedback channel. So this might be the team managing social listening, might be your customer advisory boards, your executive briefing center experiences, of course, your surveys, your customer effort score, your CSAT, your NPS surveys. Your UX team is also a feedback channel. Of course, your online community has a wealth of insights coming in from your customers, and your product team, your product wish lists, product feedback, and betas. You'll also want to identify representatives from your company that will be big consumers of this voice of the customer hub, the centralized place that you'll build, who may not own a feedback channel. So this might be product marketing, audience marketing, solutions marketing, could be your sales teams. So now you've got your dream team, your voice of the customer squad. The next step is to really understand the feedback channels you have in place today. What type of insight are you getting? How is it used? What form does it take? How is it shared? At what frequency? How are you closing the feedback loop with customers in those channels as well? Once you have a sense of your current landscape, excuse me, you're ready to work with your voice of the customer squad to centralize your insights. So here we go, we're at step 2. And this is where you're really going to define the strategy for your voice of the customer hub. We did this in the form of a one-day workshop with our voice of the customer squad. We used the landscape of the current feedback channels that we talked about in the previous step as sort of our starting point. And the goal of the session was really to identify our requirements. We weren't able to be in the same room together, but our UX team expertly led the session in a way that felt like we were. So we used Miro board as the whiteboard and kind of our working space. In the agenda, we started with a how might we exercise to really focus on what this centralized voice of the customer hub should look like. What were the most important attributes? This was really a sky's the limit kind of approach. The next part of the workshop was to really prioritize the ideas by impact to the business and difficulty to implement. So we really wanted to take an MVP approach so that we could stand up something quickly that we could build on over time. So MVP, minimum viable product. Some of the key considerations that came out of the session were access. This will be an internal resource, but we wanted to make sure that not only our Meraki team, but our Cisco team could access this, this voice of the customer hub. We also identified 2 distinct audience types. One is the individuals that would go to the voice of the customer hub, roll up their sleeves and dig into the data. Another is a group that really just wanted a very succinct summary, like our sales team. Maybe they just want a 90-second overview of what our customers are telling us each month. So we really wanted to keep the needs of those different audiences in mind. Another important requirement or discussion point was around how to socialize this voice of the customer hub and really embed it into the fabric of the culture. How to ensure that it's discoverable, that there'll be adoption, that it will be leveraged. We also identified the need of a narrator, someone who would look across our feedback channels and look across what we're hearing in the voice of the customer hub and bring a summary forth to the business, whether that's a few slides, whether it's a recorded video, something written form, someone to really bring that narration. So we determined that our MVP of a voice of the customer hub looks a little bit more like a table of contents. So all of the feedback channels that were living in those various silos across the business are now brought together in one place, even if it meant in some instances we were linking off to the actual source. We also selected 6 feedback channels to start with that were in a more mature state. And in future phases, we'll have deeper data integration and more ability to interact with the data in a dynamic way. It took a bit of time to align on the right platform to use for the voice of the customer hub. We aligned on using Elation, something that we were already using within the business, and it worked really well for dynamic dashboards like you would expect your NPS data to look like. But it also works well for more text-based summaries that you might have from a customer advisory board readout or an executive briefing center readout. And that type of feedback was really important to us to include as well. So you are now halfway through our steps for a better customer listening strategy. You've assembled your voice of the customer squad, you have your executive champion there, getting everybody excited. You've mapped out a solid plan to launch your voice of the customer hub. You're in a good spot to listen to the voice of the customer. But the next step is to respond. Beginning to close the feedback loop with customers can feel overwhelming. It can feel like staring at a blank canvas, but take that same minimum viable product, the same MVP approach we talked about for the voice of the customer hub, and think about it in the world of good, better, best. So start small with ensuring that the in the moment experience for customers is the best it possibly can be. So if feedback is coming in via survey, are you really tailoring your thank you pages based on their input? This is really easy to do in most platforms. You might want to think about inviting promoters to join your reference program or to write an online review. If a customer is interested in participating in research, tailor the thank you page so that you can strike while the iron is hot. Maybe you want to invite them right there on the spot to join a beta that's enlisting participants right at that moment. For detractors, offer a personalized follow-up to the customer. That response maybe triggers the support or product team to reach out to that individual who has expressed that they want to be communicated with. As we look at options in the better category, you might craft a tailored response and insert a token or piece of dynamic content using your marketing automation system. So this really feels very personalized, but it's a relatively easy lift. You're really just tailoring that kind of 25% of the message. In the best category is real human follow-up with a summary of the conversation brought back into your CRM like Salesforce. You might reserve this only for detractors or for customers that have suddenly shifted from longtime promoters to passives or customers using a certain product line. Be sure to think through the full workflow of this follow-up and really provide resources to guide the person doing the outreach, talking points, make sure they're really clear on what's expected of them and the process. But you don't have to just choose good, better, or best. You could mix and match. You could decide to take an approach based on a certain customer type or topic. In any category, be sure to set up a process to put customers into follow-up buckets. So that way, when you address customer feedback and maybe you launch a new product line or a new service or a new way of managing subscriptions, exactly what the customer was asking for, this is the opportunity to do that special outreach to the customer and letting them know that you've taken their feedback to heart and the customer will feel heard. In the same way you keep follow-up buckets for customer feedback, don't forget future iterations. So your customer listening strategy will never be done. You'll never be able to wipe your hands and say it's complete. There'll always be room for optimization. So keep that running list of how you can continue to iterate and scale the process. So maybe some things that don't make your minimum viable product approach for your voice of the customer hub or closing the feedback loop might be something like putting a process in place to control survey fatigue across all touch points. Especially if you're in a world right now where there's different survey platforms being used to target your customers or partners, you really want to have that control so you can have that view at the customer level of what's being sent. Another area for optimization is centralizing survey creation so that you have that same tone. If it's not an opportunity to centralize surveys within the same role or team, define survey best practices that will be used across the business whenever customer feedback is collected. So are you using a 5-point Likert scale? Is your tone consistent? Are you asking questions in the same way? Another opportunity for optimization is tighter integration of the feedback channels. I mentioned how our MVP of the Voice of the Customer Hub, more like a table of contents, but as we evolve, we really want those data sources to be coming together. So that's definitely something to iterate on over time. Bringing more feedback channels into your Voice of the Customer Hub. Maybe there is a channel that just wasn't at a state of maturity yet to really loop in, and that's something you're going to pull in the future. Certainly expanded language support. Ideally, you're going to get to a place where this is happening at a really consistent, reliable level for all languages. The frequency of the readout is something you can always turn up the volume on. Maybe you commit initially to this narrator talking about the trends we're seeing across the business just on a quarterly basis. And then you can increase that to monthly and even look at other types of cadences. The good, better, best approach to the feedback loop. We talked about maybe you pick and choose different ways to follow up based on product line or audience, but you can always turn up the volume there. To another piece here is to make sure that you're integrating requests into your internal ticketing system for that kind of immediate follow-up. So to recap, we talked about securing executive support, talked about building your voice of the customer squad, identifying your feedback channels and really understanding what they look like today, really mapping out what the voice of the customer hub will look like for your business, for the launch, the MVP launch, and then how will it iterate over time? What does that roadmap look like? We talked about building the socialization plan and really embedding that into the fabric of your culture. We talked about this MVP approach for your voice of the customer hub, taking that good, better, best approach to closing the feedback loop, even if you're starting small. Identifying those follow-up buckets to really surprise and delight customers when you've delivered on their feedback, and keeping in mind to always iterate, optimize, and scale your strategy. Beth, do we have any questions?
Thanks so much, Kate. That was great. So yeah, we've got a few questions from the audience. First one is, how do you or who determines the best cadence for collecting customer feedback?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think some of it will depend on what you can commit to initially. While it was amazing we already had a CX squad to sort of champion this, we really didn't have, this was just a portion of what people were doing in addition to their day job. So we wanted to be mindful to not commit to something that we couldn't uphold. So for us right now, that's at a quarterly basis. Ideally, though, it would be more frequent. It would be once a month and maybe even once a week. So I think you just need to be realistic with what you can support. But the greater the frequency, that's always better.
Yeah, definitely. And what would closing the feedback loop look like for product wish lists?
So there's so many great tools out there to help you manage your product wish lists that kind of automatically, if you think about those buckets, automatically fold customers into buckets for follow-up. But if you don't have something like that, that automated kind of email we talked about could be a good place to start, to begin to create those buckets of follow-up, so that you're doing that touch point, you're thanking customers for their feedback, maybe giving them a little visibility about how you think about that component in your roadmap. So there's a lot out there, but you can also start small.
Yeah, great answer. And in regards to teams, what teams will implementing voice of customer strengthen, in your opinion?
Yeah, so your customer experience team would be a natural home for this. I head up customer marketing. We look after voice of the customer, advocacy, and customer stories and lifecycle. So for us, it sits there, but really varies based on your org structure. Voice of customer is so important to our product teams, so important to our marketing teams. Hopefully it's important to everybody. So I think there's a lot of different places it could live, but I think most commonly it would be your CX team or customer success.
And how do you determine the objective of your customer insights program?
Yeah. I mean, I think we could all agree that at the heart, the objective is to help customers feel heard and to make sure we're getting the visibility about what customers are telling us. But there could be so many other objectives that are coming into the fold for your organization as well. Certainly informing how you go to market, how you prioritize your future roadmap. So I think you just need to work with your CX squad. I think that'll be a good group of people that you assemble to identify if there's nuances and if there's specific objectives that make sense for your business.
Yeah, no, definitely. And we just had another one come in. Thoughts on bringing the customer into the prioritization exercise, perhaps in a small focus group?
Ooh, that is a very cool idea. Yeah, I think that could be interesting. I mean, I really see the voice of the customer hub being something that's a gem of an internal resource for you. But it is a really important note that this will be sort of your touchstone to listen to the voice of your customer. So why not loop in your customer to get their insight? That's an excellent idea. That's very cool.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Kate. Really, really great session and really great answers. I'm sure that everyone learned a lot. So really, really appreciate you being involved with the summit. If everyone wants to connect with you, can they do so? There we go. Perfect. Amazing. All right. Well, thanks so much again, Kate. And yeah, speak to you soon.
Thank you so much.